Hello.
Hey,
It's so nice that you were able to make time for me. So thank you so much. I'm excited.
thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week.
So today we're going to be talking about Burnout, The Rise of a Villain, and it is the second installment in your Ashes Over Avalon trilogy. I don't know why
Yeah,
that's tongue-tied for me.
or I
Would
do.
you like to introduce yourself and give a brief rundown of those who may not have read this one or the previous book?
Jordan S. Keller. I'm the author of the Ashes Over Avalon trilogy. Book one, Wildfire, The Rise of a Hero. Book two, Burnout, The Rise of the Villain. They're both out now. It's a superhero romance. It's about our main hero, Abigail. She starts out as a sidekick and gets fired from her hero career for being too reckless on the job and causing too much property damage. And in order to get back into the superhero world, she makes a deal with a villain who has a similar power set as her. And the deal is Cinder, will teach her how to use her powers if she helps him get out of the city. And neither knew falling in love was going to be a part of that deal. So, book one, we get to see that romance kind of blossom, and it's super fiery and hot. I mean, they both have fire powers. Low spice level, so if you're not into smut, you're totally safe. And then we just see Abigail's growth into becoming her own superhero in books one and book two, and the troubles that come with dating a villain that you're trying to protect from your superhero boss, and maybe trying to reform him, try to get him out of the villain world, and yeah. And then the third book, Combustion, it's coming out the end of September, and we get to finally see the conclusion of Abigail and her story.
Yes, I'm very excited. How excited are you for it to finally, the third one to finally be coming out?
I'm so excited for everyone to see the ending, and I'm so sad that it's over. And I've lived with these characters since like 2019-ish, and to be officially done, the last book is over. There's nothing left to write. It's a little sad. It's a little exciting. I get to focus on what's next, but I'll always remember where this writing career started and with these heroes.
And it's been very fun. And typically, I tend to not like, like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but sophomore books, like in a series, tend to not do as well. But I actually really loved the second one. And I'm always a little bit hesitant going into book two of a trilogy because a lot of times it feels like a filler book. But I don't think that this felt this way. And my favorite character came in this book. But but before we get started on like just talking about Burnout, I wanted to ask some series questions in
Yeah,
general, if that's okay.
of course.
So how did you come up with the idea of this world?
So I've always loved comic books. You can see all my pictures in the background, and I've loved the idea of corporation-owned superheroes. We see it in The Boys, we see it in My Hero Academia. There's a couple DC and Marvel spin-offs that kind of do it that way. And in my mind, if superheroes did exist in America, I feel like that's the most real portrayal of them. Of course, they'd have sponsorships, and of course, there'd be popularity polls, and of course, all of their stuff would be tracked on social medias, and I really wanted to explore that. And Abigail was inspired by a D&D character I had played, and it was a 2 year long game, and when the game ended, I wasn't ready to let her go. So I would just write her in different scenarios, different worlds, different AUs, and the superhero one really stuck. And it was all summer I was writing in this little sandboxy world, and I got to like 20,000 words, and I realized, oh my gosh, I could make this a novel. And I thought I owed it to me, I owed it to my characters to flesh it out, expand it, and that's what became book one of Wildfire and of the Ashes Over Avalon trilogy.
Well, I'm glad that you did.
Thank you.
Have you ever sat down and actually written characters in other scenarios for other D&D campaigns, or was this kind of a first time thing for you?
This was kind of the first time thing. I have since tried it before, and nothing's really stuck as well as Abigail. And now when I go to make my Dungeons and Dragons characters, I kind of think like, what would make them a super cool novel character? And creating them that way has been super fun, as opposed to just rolling dice and like, oh, well, they're going to be strong, so they've got to be a fighter.
Sure
Um,
makes for a good campaign too.
it,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, my husband's going to enjoy this interview because he loves D&D, so he's going to be happy that somebody I'm interviewing loves it.
You
So
should
did
give it,
you, what was that?
you should give it a shot if you haven't played yet. A lot of fun.
I haven't played in a few years. I'm one of those people who gets very overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to commit to it every week because when I played it with my husband, it was like for 6 hours a day. And I'm like, I can give you three max.
Yeah, I think we did 3 hours every other week. So
Yeah,
I
so you
understand that.
understand. So did you always know that you wanted it to be a trilogy once you decided that you wanted to kind of expand
Yeah,
Abigail's
I
story?
I didn't. It was my publisher who requested it become a trilogy, and so I think that's why book two feels more complete because book one was written as a standalone, and I tweaked the end a little bit so that it could elevate into a book two and a book three. Whereas book two and book three, I really got to brainstorm together and pull through lines and really have a more overarching plot because I know I had two full books to work with. So I after I finished Wildfire, I had some ideas of what could happen next, but I never expected to be able to write them. So I was lucky in that sense. I kind of had a springboard to where to go, and then as I started drafting, it all kind of like blossomed and bloomed and really got this like ending duology almost.
That's interesting because typically I hear of people who really go into a story wanting like like a duology or a trilogy, and they're told like, "Hey, write this so it can be a standalone if it needs to be." But you kind of went in with the opposite thing.
I guess the way my publisher explained it, they were kind of more so, well, if we got you for one, we know you can write. Let's just go ahead and get the three because I guess that sells better. I'm not sure all the behind the scenes of the marketing of it, but I was grateful it happened that way, and
Yeah.
I'm glad they took
Well,
the chance on me.
thank you to them. Did you want to shout out your publisher?
Yeah, I'm with Speaking Volumes. They have been so great and so important in learning this craft in this field. They've been very open about everything, and I know if I have any questions, I can shoot them an email, and they'll be able to provide me with an answer. And it's been a great partnership with them.
Good. I'm very glad to hear that. There was the other thing. You have the Round Table Knights. So what made you go in that direction with that type of what I don't know what I'm trying to say, what word I'm looking for, but what made you go with something with like characters nicknamed like King Arthur and
Always just been a sucker for that kind of world, that kind of lore. Sorcerer's Apprentice was one of my favorite movies growing up. A couple of my favorite books have themes with the Arthurian legends and everything, and I'm just a sucker for like the knight in shining armor, so that's the Lancelot character, and then the super smart witch, so there's Merlin, and then the strong king as King Arthur. And I thought Excalibur was such a cool superhero name, and I think that seed in the back of my head made everything else possible because like, oh, I can finally use Excalibur in a story, and like, well, he's going to need a King Arthur, and they're going to need a Lancelot, and what's Abigail's hero name going to be? And,
see, I really like that I can tell that you're very excited and very passionate about like not just the story that you wrote, but the things that inspired it that came kind of before that. And that's really exciting to see because I don't think
you.
that we see a lot of I'm not gonna say we don't see a lot of it, but I think sometimes it's easy to kind of forget things that are inspired by.
I was so nervous people would be like, "Oh, this is just so and so meet so and so," and like it's exactly that. Like I'm taking all of my favorite things and putting them into one book, and I hope I did it respectfully, and I hope I did it with enough flavor of my own. But like I was stealing things from all over the place.
Well, I like when people write things that they're fans of, so that was perfect.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I did want to say that this probably is going to contain some spoilers. So for people who haven't read books one and two, I highly recommend going to do that. And I'll probably leave some links in the description so that if you happen to want to, purchase them, you can.
I'd be very grateful. Yes.
So in book two, Abigail is still working with the Round Table Knights. And at the beginning, she's kind of in the middle of like this hostage situation, which goes pretty badly for one of the criminals.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and you already touched on this, but I had on here that like I really liked about this story, like the heroes aren't just working on their own and aren't vigilantes, that they kind of have to cooperate with the police and they have like this public image to uphold. And when things go wrong, they kind of have to deal with things in like a PR crisis kind of way. I know that you mentioned like references to The Boys, and forgive me, you're a lot more knowledgeable in superheroes than I am. I know Marvel, and that's about it. So what made you Did you always know that you wanted to go that route when you were creating this, or was it more so after thinking about it and like, you know what, I really like the way that the boys and this and that handles that, and that's kind of what I'd want to do.
Yeah, from day that the corporation owned superheroes and like their media appearance, and I just think it's so fascinating because like in a situation with superpowers, like these people could do so much good, but of course there's going to be red tape, there's going to be hoops, there's going to be like safety protocols to keep people without powers safe, which is important. Superman could not just run through a city and save everything, and like he would need to get checked and balanced. And I always think about like superhero insurance companies because you'd have to have so much new insurance to cover like property damage and if like the Hulk picks up your car, throws it, like who pays for that? And I just think it's so fascinating, and I just think it. Yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, I really like that route. We're introduced to a new character in this one, and he is my favorite, Lancelot. When you were coming up with this character, did you intend for him to come in and steal everybody's hearts because he's so adorable?
I didn't, and even stole my heart. And there's a I knew I wanted like a younger character for Abigail to start kind of mentoring, and I thought that was a good transition for her. And I we hadn't had Lancelot as a character in the round table, and I thought, well, that's who we're missing. Let's get this young shot in there. And I love how you said stole your heart because there's a scene in Burnout where like he kind of confesses he's got a crush to Abigail, and I never planned that. And all of a sudden, I'm writing this like, oh, they're gonna get together and be happy. Like, no, wait, they can't. Cinder is still here, and so adding that really unplanned, but I really liked where it went. It plays a big role in book two. Oh, I'm sorry, it plays a big role in book three. Uh, but yeah, I just wanted to like this is going to sound so mean. I wanted like a dumb puppy dog young character that we could see grow and just establish himself and become his own hero, also underneath the tutelage of Abigail. And we got Lancelot out of that.
Yes, I'm so excited for book three because I want more of him. I just thought he was so adorable. Like, and I can't remember how old he's supposed to be. I know he's supposed to be super young. So for me, I think I was looking more at it from like a, oh my gosh, you're so cute. So I'm looking at him like, this is so adorable. He's so cute. And did you know that, like, as soon as you came up with him, I know that you said that you started writing in ways that you weren't like expecting, but
Mhm.
once it started going in that direction, was it easier to, even though you can't spoil anything for book three, was it easier to kind of come up with a story, a continuation of a story?
A little but yes, but not in a way I think you're expecting. Like I wanted to take like what should have happened and kind of twist it a little.
So in here, we have, as you said, Abigail's his mentor. How would you describe their relationship aside from just like a student, like mentor kind of
Yeah.
relationship? If you had to explain the connection between them in book two to people who don't know that that's what it is.
Yeah, so Abigail definitely sees a little bit of herself in Lancelot as in like this young hero, super eager and excited. And there's a part where she's kind of thinking to herself that he hasn't become jaded to the career yet because she starts, oh, another camera, another interview. I just want to save people and I can't because I've got to do all this PR stuff first. And he's still like, oh, look at my adoring fans and oh, I'll take the interview. And like we still get to see all this young excitement, all this energy in Lancelot that Abigail used to have. And so that's kind of refreshing to her because like in her mind, okay, well, I can still have that excitement and I can still want to be a hero and I can still successfully be a hero. So she kind of sees herself in him that way, and he kind of reminds her that you can still have this excitement in the career. And then she also feels very responsible for Lancelot since she is his hero and he is her sidekick. So she's a lot more protective over him, and just like she tries to keep him on the sidelines just so he doesn't get hurt, and he doesn't. Same concept. He doesn't want her to get hurt. So we get to see a lot of her being there for him, and then him also being there for her. So there's this dynamic of her always wanting to protect him, and then he in turn wanting to protect her, since his power is a bit more offensive, or sorry, his power is a bit more defensive and hers is a bit more offensive. So we get to see them almost competing to protect the other one, which was really cute and fun to write.
Yeah, it was very fun to read too.
Thank
Like
you.
you mentioned that his powers are a lot more defensive. I can't remember exactly because I read this book like a few months ago, but it kind of reminded me of something else that was coming up, which was uh what do you want me to call him? Do you want me to call him Thomas Sender? What do you
I interview all the time. You can do
Okay.
Cinder.
Like the tips of his fingers are black, and I think that you said that that was caused by kind of absorbing
Correct.
fire. So Abigail can't do that, or at least can't do that yet. Do you think that she was just kind of blinded by love? Because, like, why do you think it took her so long to f figure out, like, hey, it's possible that he might be starting these? Because I know at one point you said, okay, if absorbing fire makes them black, then starting fires like
Takes them all.
takes
Yeah.
it away. Yeah.
100% blinded by love. And it was so, spoilers, in book two, they get engaged, and he'll always bring up their wedding as a way to distract her. So like as soon as she's starting to like, wait a second, you were at that fire, like why? And then he'll be, oh well, do you think we should have roses or sunflowers as our centerpieces? And the saying is, you write what you know. When I was writing
Hmm.
this book, my husband and I had just gotten engaged, and there had been a death in the family, and so to distract me from that, he'd always be like, should we have chocolate cake or vanilla cake? And like, just to the distraction worked so well for me. It was easy to incorporate that into the book. And so I definitely blinded by love, blinded by this future together. Because in book one, she wasn't sure they could ever have that. And now that she believes they can, she's ready to do anything to keep it, to keep him in her life. And so it was very easy for her to like, it can't be you, and then just look away.
Yeah, that makes sense. Despite being blinded by love, had she taken a step back, if she'd been presented with the evidence a little sooner, do you think she would have come to the conclusion sooner, or do you think she would have kept on denying it until a certain point?
I, ooh, I think if it was just like your run-of-the-mill villain, she would have easily connected all the dots. They would have picked up the perp, and it would have been history. But yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, she is so blinded by this happily ever after that she wants, that she's easily able to deny, deny, deny until the evidence is
Mhm.
just undeniable.
Yeah,
So,
there were some really cool visuals too of her walking in on him when he was a little out of control. Uh Are those scenes really fun for you to write, or are they a bit more challenging and make you want to pull your hair out?
um, fun because they're challenging. Because like there was this like crystal clear image in my head that I really wanted to convey, and like this like uncomfortability that Abigail's feeling. And so finding a way to incorporate that was a lot of fun. It took so long. I probably spent hours on single pages to get it right. But I really enjoyed doing it that way.
She's braver than I am, because if I would have walked into some of that, I would have been like,
Nope.
Mom, can I come home?
Um, I joke. I'm like, I want to get a bracelet that's like WWAD. Like, what would Abigail do?
Just look down on it every time that you are scared or have a dilemma.
Because my
Yeah.
day job is not scary, but gosh, I wish I was as brave as her.
Me too. When you were writing and sprinkling in the hints, did you know the outcome? Because I know you mentioned kind of the first writing the first one as a standalone and then they wanted it as a trilogy. And so you had to figure it out. How much do you outline versus just writing and seeing what happens? Because I know you sprinkled a lot of hints in, and I was wondering how much of that was planned from the beginning and how much you had to kind of go back and be like, okay, now I need to add some stuff in here.
Sprinkling was 100% after draft one was written. Usually when I outline, I know where it begins, I know where I want it to end, and a couple of scenes in between. And then the rest just kind of zigzag back and forth on how I'm going to get there. But with Burnout and then Combustion, I did have to outline kind of extensively because I was on a deadline and I had a ton of index cards, and it was just scene by scene. And even then, I'm moving things around, I'm adding things later. But initially the first draft there was like two fires, I think, and then I realized, well, that's going to be super easy to connect to him, especially since it
Mhm.
was later in the book. And so then I printed out the whole manuscript, about got a bunch of sticky notes, and I started stickying like, okay, we can put a fire there, we can put a fire there, and this can relate to this one because XYZ. And it felt like writing a mystery more so than writing an action novel, just to make sure everything made sense and the through line was there, and try to do some like some misdirects and stuff.
Sounds
So
very challenging.
oh, I would, I wish I knew what I wanted more when I started writing, so I could have outlined a little better. Because this has been the longest it had taken me to edit a book to get it ready from idea to what I had turned in. So-
Well, and like I said, this isn't me like trashing on book one. I liked book one a lot, but
Mhm.
I actually really enjoyed book two. Like that so far now, obviously I haven't read book three yet, but so far book two is my favorite. So
Yeah.
it was the hardest for you to do, I guess, but the
It
outcome was really good.
I will forever be proud of Wildfire, but I was definitely learning how to write with it. And so when I look at it, I'm like, oh, I could have done this better. Oh, I should have done that differently. And I think that might be why books two and three feel stronger, feel more like lifelike, just because I had done all my learning in book one
Yeah.
and was able to use all that in
Yeah.
the next two.
Yeah. I did like book one though. I don't want
Thank you.
it was just book two. And I'm hoping that book three
Book three is
is
my favorite.
because it's kind of got the little purple like
Mhm.
hints on the cover. I'm just like, okay, I'm already going to like this. It's got the purple on
Something
there.
something is happening.
Abigail's already kind of in hot water because of the beginning.
Right.
So when you were coming up with her punishment, I think it was after the movie theater
Mhm.
with her date with Thomas, which turned into a whole who is she dating thing in the press. What what made you decide to come up with teaching kids how to brush their teeth as a punishment? Because that was the furthest thing from my mind of what would have happened.
So in my when I was in college, I was a journalism student, so we got to cover all sorts of stuff. And one of the things I got to cover was the traditional music department had to write children's songs. And one of the other students who worked in the newspaper with me, he wrote a song about brushing your teeth, and that song has lived rent free in my head till this day. And I thought, like, what an easy incorporation. The song in the book is not the song he wrote. I don't think there's a recording of that song. And so I just again write what you know. I'm like, oh, let's sing songs to kids about brushing their teeth. And I just felt like, what would I hate doing? And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of patience with small kids. Like I just don't. And so I just incorporated that in the book also. Um,
Well, I like that you're incorporating real life experiences because it makes it feel a lot more real and also very humorous.
Thank you.
And I think that was the scene where I just decided, like, I was just like, yep, I thought he was gonna be, but he is definitely my favorite.
Oh, Lancelot.
He's so adorable. So after Abigail kind of puts the pieces together, how long did that take you to kind of figure out when it was that she was going to? Because I know you said that you went back and sticky note, and how long did it take you until you decided this is when she's going to figure it out, and this is how much time we have before when she figures it out to when we get to the reveal of spoiler
Cinder.
Thomas Sender again.
I This sounds like such a lame answer, but I kind of just did it like in the novel percentages sort of thing. So like we've got our act one, our act two, and our act three. And so I figured right as we were getting to about like the 75-ish percent wise of the length I wanted the book, that's when she should figure out, or at least confirm her suspicions and then kind of kickstart the whole ending scenes. Um, so math, I guess, is the correct answer.
Math.
Oh, math.
So when everything's said and done, Thomas or Sender he is s supposed to be dead, or like that's what we're led to believe anyway. If Abigail had gotten to Thomas sooner, and do you think that there's any part of him that would have kind of come to his senses and let go of the anger that he felt that made him become Sender, or was that always going to be in the cards for him?
That was always going to be in the cards, but that is such a cool ending because, like, if after the first fire, if he just would have came to her, like, listen, babe, I've got a problem, like, they could have worked through it. And, like, but I just don't know if that would have been as exciting as, like, the, the chase scenes and the being just like two steps behind him sort of moments. And,
You wouldn't have
um,
had a book three.
Oh, and Unbattlable 3. Oh,
If you had to pick a song to be Abigail's theme song, Lancelot's theme song, and Cinder's theme songs, what songs would you
oh
pick?
yeah. So I've got playlists for all of them. I'm gonna grab my phone real fast. So in my head, Abigail doesn't really know music, so she's just like on like pop songs and stuff. What's on the radio? I feel like Lancelot is 100% like whatever band can get him the girls. So like any like One Republic, 5 Seconds of Summer, like those kind of bands. Whereas Cinder, he listens to more like 90s rock, so like Three Doors Down and like the 33 Special. But hold on, let me pull up their playlist. Danger to Myself is probably a Cinder song, and it's by the Unlikely Candidates.
I haven't heard of that
Oh, it's so good. And then
one.
they've got a song called Violence, and that is his song to Abigail, which she absolutely hates. The scene in Burnout when they're listening on the old cassette or the old CD player of Abigail's, the song they're dancing to is Heavenly by Broadside. So fun fact there.
I know that's a very difficult question to ask because if anyone were to ask me, I wouldn't be able to answer. So I just did you dirty, but luckily you were kind of
I was
prepared.
prepared. I was a little halfway there.
So the last question is, what do you hope that people take away from not just book two, but from the trilogy in general?
What I hope people take away is the same sort of realization Abigail has at the very end, where like you don't have so Abigail believes that in order to save people, she has to have her mask, she has to be Avalon, she has to be a superhero, but she'll come to find out that she can do that just by being herself. There's no need for special powers, no need for her special persona, and I hope people can like I writing this book really helped me be able to know that I'm everything I want to be just as me. I don't need to pretend to be anyone else. And I'm hoping people can take that away that they're perfect just the way they are. That there's no need to try to be anyone different.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about it because someone had mentioned that like that's sort of what all the three books end up being about.
I will leave links and then Combustion comes out September 24th.
Yep,
Depending on when this is uploaded, either you'll have to wait a little while or
you can add to
hey,
cart.
you can go get it now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Kayla. This was a lot
Yes.
of fun.
Yes, and I can't wait to read the
I
third
can't
book.
wait for you
Bye.
either.